Kenya is the cradle of civilization. It can also be the end of championship ambitions for rally drivers without extraordinary endurance and tenacity. The Marlboro Safari Rally, staged every Easter in Kenya, is simply the greatest test of car and driver in the world. As with the country's celebrated big game, it is a matter of the survival of the swiftest and the fittest. The Marlboro Safari is one long, natural, unrelenting, unforgiving, unforgettable open road achievement of the impossible, and has become as much a part of the East African nation's heritage as its wildlife, its mountains, its jungles, its rift valleys. Archaeologists consider Kenya among the most ancient lands on Earth. Rally drivers deem it among the most challenging. The high national esteem of the safari is underlined by the official presence of Kenyan President Daniel Arap Moi, sending the cars off in the 31st running of the rally in 1983. Local media coverage reached the very few Kenyans who did not actually witness part of the event. For 5 days, the press will report little else. First car to tackle the treacherous 5,000 kilometers across equatorial Africa is fittingly the First Lady of Rallying, Michelle Mouton,
Never
France.
think about this, because everything can happen each kilometer, and everything can change each kilometer.
More than a match for the men in the sport, Mouton was barely beaten for the World Championship the previous season.
That's more.
Number 2 is Ari Vatanen of Finland, in one of the 2 Opel Asconas entered.
Impossible to plan in advance.
One of the quickest in the sport, Vatanen is returning to full-time rallying after sitting out the latter part of last year's championship. Timo Salonen, another of the Finnish drivers dominating rally driving, is third to be flagged off in one of the 3 Nissans.
Yes, in a manner.
Sheko Mehta, more than anyone else, is synonymous with success in the Safari Rally.
If we spend more time repairing.
The Kenya resident has won the event 5 times in all, including the last 4 in a row, and is favoured to add to that impressive record in his factory-supported Nissan, carrying the Marlboro colours. Mike Kirkland, in car number 5, is another local favourite in the third works Nissan.
I've got the best car here, but we have a little bit...
Finland's Hannu Mikkola, in car number 6, is Michel Mouton's teammate in the Audi Quattro team, and renowned as one of rallying's great all-round drivers. Local hero Vic Preston Jr., who has considerable experience on Kenyan roads, completes the Audi lineup.
I'm very happy on the car.
Abdallah Omar of Dubai, a leading rally driver in the Middle East, is back for his second Marlboro Safari attempt in car number 24. The first leg of the rally, staged every year at Easter, runs from the capital at Nairobi to Mombasa on the sea and back, a flat-out dash of 1,600 kilometers. The unyielding Kenyan countryside is the constant of the rally. The variable hazard is the weather. In 1983, Easter fell early, before the traditional season of long rains and their resulting mud. This means clogging, clinging, blinding dust. Every car leaves its own blizzard of fine, dense dust in its wake, making overtaking another car at best risky and at worst impossible. At first, the order follows the progression of the seeding, with the factory entries, the lowest numbers of the 78 starters, well out in front. The heat and dust take their toll. Tires begin to blister, water and oil temperatures soar over the top, brake and clutch fluid begin to boil. Yet the drivers press on, at some stages required to maintain average speeds of 175 kilometers per hour. The smallest measure of time in the Marlboro Safari is the minute. The milliseconds used to determine positions in traditional European rallies have no place in an event where those who finish can be separated by a day in penalty time. Most rallies include special stages, speed sprints over closed roads to add obstacles to the course, like a steeplechase. No artificial difficulties are needed in the safari. Nature supplies enough. To assist engine cooling, many drivers switch on the car heaters in spite of the heat from the equatorial sun. With the windows closed to pressurize against the pervasive dust, conditions inside the cars go from uncomfortable to intolerable. While the rally is near torture for the drivers and their support crews, it is an eagerly anticipated holiday for the Kenyan natives. As every year, the bulk of the 1983 entries are private, but the front runners are factory teams. Audi, competing in the Marlboro Safari for the first time, came with the planning and logistical support of a military campaign. In addition to the 3 rally cars, the team arrived with 3 practice vehicles, 3 four-wheel drive cars, 6 Volkswagen buses, 4 retrieval cars, a helicopter and a light aircraft. Nissan and Opel appeared with similar armadas. As expected, the top seeds, Mouton, Vatanen, Salonen, Meta, Mikola and Preston, set the early pace. As teams clock in at the 26 control points on the first leg, penalties for arriving late or early begin to mount. Several arrive early by design, hoping that moving to the head of the pack and out of the blinding dust of back markers will offset the penalty. Hannu Mikola took the lead at the outset. The Audi trio is well placed, Vic Preston and Michel Mouton high in the standings. Preston is a logical favourite for the finish line honours, knowing the roads of his country as well as anyone. Audi shipped him a practice car in January, and he has logged thousands of kilometres over the rally legs in the months since. The Quattros, thought to favour damp going, were thriving in the dry. Preston was the man to beat, on his native turf with a powerful, proven car. Even the strongest car and driver needs rest and refitting frequently in what is essentially 5 days and nights of racing. Michel Mouton and co-driver Fabrizio Pons of Italy are having their first look at East Africa, and they have a front seat to view it. Supremely competitive, Mouton and Pons drive every race to win, rather than adopt a slower but safer pace favoured by many others to finish and score championship points. Rally cars break down because they are subjected to more punishment in a few days than a family sedan in a lifetime. What is remarkable is the speed with which the service crews have the cars repaired and back in contention. Their speed would be exceptional in a workshop. In remote jungles and mountains, it is astonishing. Mouton has had her share of accidents that are the stock of the trade, but nothing has blunted her enthusiasm. Mouton lost a wheel and the lead to Timo Salonen, who lost his gearbox and the lead to Shekhar Mehta, hoping for his sixth victory. But it was not to be. At the final stage of the first leg, Mehta snapped a camshaft within sight of the finish. Mechanics slogged to repair it, but there was just not enough time.
We broke a camshaft about 30 kilometers before the last control, and we're time-barred because it's too big a job to fix it.
After a total of 17,175 kilometers as reigning champion of the event, Mehta's incredible run of safari victories has come to an end. At the finish of the first leg, Vic Preston Jr. is in the lead. Second is Timo Salonen. Third, Michel Mouton. Fourth, Rob Collinge. Fifth, Rono Aaltonen. And sixth, Ari Vatanen. First in and first out for the second leg is Preston, son of the 1955 Safari winner. With 1 second and 2 third-place finishes in the rally to his credit, he seems destined to continue the family tradition in the third Works Quattro. Timo Salonen in car number 3 lies second and the sole hope of the Nissan team, their other 2 cars already casualties. With a service fleet of 20 cars and trucks backing him up, Salonen can expect a lot of support from the Japanese factory. Michel Mouton in car number 1 has worked her way back to third after a 42-minute stop to repair suspension damage on the first leg. Her rise in international rallying has been as swift as her driving. Only 2 seasons earlier, the lady from Grasse in southern France was driving a semi-official Fiat in minor European events. In 1982, she proved she was ready for the major league by winning more international rallies than anyone else and narrowly missing the World Championship for drivers. Hannu Mithila, in car number 6, has also sprung back from first leg disasters requiring installation of a new water pump and cylinder heads. Nighttime starts and finishes are as common to rallying as punctured tires. In many major rallies, more than half the driving takes place at night, adding a lack of sleep to other hazards. Ari Vatanen, in car number 2, is almost a half hour off Vic Preston's pace, but there are still 2 legs to go. The second leg is a circuit through the wheat fields ringing Mount Kenya, highest point in the land. Dust is again the diet generated in infinite quantities by anything that moves, and there are still a lot of things moving as the second leg unfolds. It develops into a procession with only minor shuffling, mainly due to tire failure from racing on and off the road. Flying stops at control points save minutes, the most precious commodity to a safari driver. The teams speed on, relentlessly pushing even farther the cars that have already reached the limit. After circling Mount Kenya, 36 of the 78 starters are still in the running after 3,000 kilometers of tough going. There are still 2,000 left to go. In 3 decades, the Kenyans have become sophisticated in their knowledge that it takes a special driver to master their rally. The question becomes whether it will be yet again a Kenyan, like the leading Preston, or one of the more experienced Europeans who are chasing him. tactics as well as speed appear to loom for the third leg after a rather cautious second. Vic Preston has not only retained his lead in the Audi Quattro, he has extended it. He would again be ahead of the dust storm for the third and final leg, and that was the key to his success in the second. Preston, Salonen and Mouton were again 1, 2 and 3. Aaltonen had moved up to 4th, followed by Collinge 5 and Mikkola 6. Hannu Mikkola, after another series of repairs, was again working his way up and illustrating why in 1972 he was the first overseas driver ever to win the Safari. Michèle Mouton, lying just off the pace, was in the third works Audi capable of winning. Her flair and determination are outstanding to the public and press. She gives everything she's got in every event, compressing as much effort into one rally as some drivers would over a season. Mouton accepts nothing but the best. When congratulated for second in the 1982 championship, she pointed out that there was still one position higher. Rally fever went up a degree with the approach of the final leg. Kenyan press and broadcast coverage was absolute and totally professional.
It's the third attempt of a team of Salonen.
That's the crew that are still in the rally. Mike Kirkland is out.
The third and final leg is a climb from the highlands of Nairobi up to the shores of Lake Victoria and back. It starts just before dawn, and like the earlier going is a dust bowl, stretching from Preston in the lead back to the last stragglers hours behind. The dust added another hazard to an already risky undertaking. Hannu Mikkola likened overtaking a competitor in the dust to landing an airplane blind with only instructions from the control tower. Finding a clear view through the dust dictates a different track for vehicles hurtling through the same narrow stretch. In the desperation of the final stage, overtaking has become critical, taking out a number of well-placed challengers. Preston still leads, but a broken turbocharger cuts his advantage severely. Mouton was again up to second place when she lost a rear wheel for the second time in the rally. The crowd sense the battle has been joined, and the rally outcome is developing in the final stages. Little separates the leaders, and it could be the closest safari finish since 1973, when the event ended in a tie. Salonen in the Nissan number 3, Mikkola in the Quattro number 6, and Vatanen in the Works Opel Ascona number 2 threatened to make it a three-way finish fight to the winning post. Preston holds on to the honours, but his long stop for repairs has forced him to abandon the tactics that served him so well. Instead of driving at his own pace, he must go flat out to keep ahead of the fast-closing competition. Later, a rock hidden in the flying dust would eliminate his suspension and his victory hopes only 25 kilometers from the winner's podium. Mikkola checks in and once again reinforces his reputation for performing brilliantly in adverse conditions. Salonen has been in the thick of things from the start and stands ready to inherit the lead again should the others falter. Factory teams still lead the long train back to Nairobi. Their ranks are rapidly thinning. Of the 8 works cars at the start, only 3 remain. Mikkola and Mouton continue in the 2 remaining Quattros, Vatanen in the sole Opel. Nissan, so successful in the past with the Datsun Sylvia model, have been suffering tremendous development problems with their new model, the 240 RS. Every factory team is aware that, in spite of enormous preparation and organization, there is always the chance of being beaten by some unknown entry. It is highly improbable, but on safari, rallying is a string of improbabilities. Drivers face new problems at this late stage of a rally. Fatigue, lapses of concentration, sagging of the will to win. The Nakuru control is the final halt of the rally and finds Finland's Ari Vatanen and co-driver Terry Harriman of Northern Ireland carrying the honours. The lead has changed 6 times, but their possession of the #1 slot could prove the most significant. Mikkola arrives 7 minutes later, after 4,787 kilometres of hard competition. The only remaining question in the final rundown to the finish is whether the Opel can hang on to the lead over the power and traction of the Audi. Vatanen stays clear of Mikkola and his Quattro in an inspired duel to Nairobi and the final clocking of the contest. All Nairobi is on hand to welcome the victors. Ari Vatanen drove a fast, well-judged race to snatch the lead at exactly the right time and hold on to it. The Finnish champion is the first to mount the ramp which he left 5,000 grueling kilometers earlier, winning in only his second attempt at the safari. Vatanen was 6 minutes ahead of countryman Hannu Mikkola, a blink of an elephant's eye in such a long and impossible test. But that blink was enough to make Ari Vatanen and Terry Harriman the undisputed champions of the world's toughest and greatest motor rally. Hannu Mikkola, beset by mechanical failures, yet not knowing how to give up, brought more glory to himself and the Audi team. A second place by 6 minutes in Audi's first East African entry points to the power of the future. Audi's encouraging debut is amplified by Michèle Mouton, a strong third in her first visit to Kenya. It was a performance that endorsed her reputation as a driver who can excel in any climate or on any surface, and the Quattro's potential to do anything, anywhere. Works teams provide the pyrotechnics of the Marlboro Safari, while private entries are the heart. A typical example is Kenyan Johnny Hillier, who started 7th in a Peugeot 504 pickup and dropped only 1 place to the end, driving ably and out of the glare of the international press. With sportsmen like Hillier challenging the stars like Vatanen, Mikkola and Mouton, there will always be a Marlboro Safari rally, and there will always be an exciting one.